Hey there, it's Michelle Caruana from Play Cafe Academy and Profitable Play. And today I have something for you that has been highly requested since the last video I did like this, and that is another coaching call with a current Playmakers Society member. Now, just as a quick refresher, Playmakers Society is my membership that is open only to Play Cafe Academy members, and this coaching call is with a power couple, Kaylinn and Jeremy Swaim, the owners of Monkey Around in Montana, and they are just two of the people you will be lucky enough to meet inside of Playmakers Society. But I am really excited for this particular coaching call for a couple reasons, because Kaylinn and Jeremy's situation is a little bit unique. So the first thing that makes this conversation really unique is that Kaylinn and Jeremy actually bought both of their indoor playground locations. So they currently have, again, two locations in Montana. And I'm pretty sure that all of the owners I've done coaching calls with previously on this channel, they've opened their locations from scratch. So if you have bought an existing business, or if you're interested in purchasing an existing play space, but you're a little bit nervous about the numbers, or you're just wondering what it takes to turn around a struggling business, this is going to be a really helpful and eye-opening conversation for you. So I'm very excited they agreed to do this coaching call with me. Another thing that makes Kaylinn and Jeremy's situation unique is that, unfortunately, just a couple weeks before this conversation took place, one of their locations actually suffered a devastating fire, and it was a near total loss. So that has been really tricky to navigate for them, but they have just been so tenacious through everything, and I am just in complete awe, again, of this couple. So we talk about that incident, and we also talk about how they're currently utilizing and trying to optimize a pop-up space in that area. So that fire displaced that location, but they still really wanted to serve that particular portion of the community. So they have opened a pop-up or temporary location, which again has brought on its own set of challenges, which we're going to talk about in this conversation. So if you are considering opening a minimum viable product, which is something I've talked about on this channel before, an MVP, basically a pop-up location or a temporary play space in an existing local business like a coffee shop or a brewery or something like that, or in this case, a water park, or just in any vacant space in your area without doing a full lease and build out, this conversation will also be very helpful for you. And of course, those are just two aspects of our conversation. We talk about a whole lot more. But again, I am very excited and very grateful for Kaylinn and Jeremy who agreed to do this coaching call with me. So I have linked all of their information and their website in the video description, and I highly recommend following them on TikTok. They are, again, so creative and so fun to follow. So I highly recommend following along their journey and connecting with them that way. But without further ado, here is my conversation with Kaylinn and Jeremy from Monkey Around in Montana. Hi guys, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, we're excited.
All right, so do you want to get started by introducing yourselves?
Yeah, so I'm Kaylinn, and this is my husband Jeremy, and we own Monkey Around Play Cafe in Billings, Montana. We bought it established. It had been around for about 2 years, and I took it over 8 months ago. The previous owners had not done any marketing except for word of mouth, and they just kind of had it as a passion project. We took it over 2 months after our daughter was born, and we've been running with it ever since.
Awesome. So I'm excited to dig into this conversation, especially because your situation's a little bit unique. So why don't we just get started and dive in? What questions do you guys have for me?
The biggest, I'm looking at my email now. We have a pop-up location. So our town is about 120,000 people that we draw from, and we're really segmented into two parts. There's like the West End and the Heights has nothing. So we have partnered with a local water park, and we have put a mini play cafe inside of their party room. And we had a different location that had a fire like the same week that we were trying to launch the pop-up, and so marketing has kind of fallen by the wayside. So I think my biggest question right now is like, how do we effectively market a pop-up that will be around? We have 2 more months in this space, and then it'll be gone all summer.
Okay, so just for a little bit more context, is the goal of the pop-up to be like a standalone business, or is it really like a lead generator for your main location?
We are using it to test out opening a full-time location on that side of town in the next 18 to 36 months. So it's pretty limited. We'd like to have lead generation to get people to our main location, but depending on where you live in that part of town, it can take almost 40 minutes to get over to the other location. So we really are trying to use this to introduce ourselves to the market and then use it as a catalyst for a successful launch in 2 to 3 years.
And a lot of people don't go to our location because they live in that area of town. And a lot of people have expressed a desire to have something like that up in the Heights. But since it is a pop-up location, we can't like advertise at that location, or we can't do Google ads for that location, or even have a website to drive traffic to there. So it's mostly just word of mouth from our first location and word of mouth from other people. And so we're having a hard time how do you do ads? We're putting a flag out front, stuff like that.
So it's in the water park?
Yeah, it's inside of, they have a party room.
Okay. Have they given you any of their marketing assets? Like, have they offered to send emails or anything like that?
They are not super great at marketing. So they're the only kids activity on that side of town. So they don't really need to market because it's what you see no matter where you drive. They have collaborated a little bit on their Facebook platform. Our reach right now is we have 2,500 followers and they have about 6,700. So anytime we tag them in a post, they share it. But they don't have like a big really email list that they utilize a lot.
I mean, I'm assuming that they probably have members. Is that correct?
Yes, they have they have like season passes.
Okay.
So they don't have annual members. It only signs up in May when they open and it closes in September.
I think it would be worth asking if you can have access to that list or if they can send out an email blast. Even if they don't email regularly, it's still something that I would push for, especially because if they're generating income from your renting that space, they probably want it to be successful and they probably want to do it in the future. So because it sounds like you guys are a little bit more well-versed in marketing than they are, I would just pitch it in a way that makes it seem mutually beneficial, because I think that is a huge untapped opportunity. And, I know that there are some, legal implications about sharing lists and things like that. But if it's a customer list and because your pop-up location is literally inside of their water park, I don't think it's a big deal, especially if they're the one sending the email and you can have control over the copy, you can have control over the subject line. But the ideal situation is for you to gain access to that list somehow, because not only can you email them directly if it's, within their terms of service, but you can also upload that list as a custom audience in Facebook to do Facebook and Instagram ads. And I know you guys said you don't want to spend, a lot of money on advertising for that location, but for people that are already frequenting that location or are already very interested in attending that location, I think it's a no-brainer. And if one of the things that they're concerned about, which for all, theme parks, they're concerned about it, so I would venture to say they are, is member retention rate. So if they can reinvigorate their member list a little bit, get them back into the park, get them spending money on food and drink and other things, it's a win-win scenario if you can either gain access to that list or if they can send out a couple email blasts that are largely directed by you, to kind of let them know that it's an option. And, you can be really creative with this, especially if you're able to gain access to that list, because you can, in the footer of that email or in the PS, you can say, hey, by the way, we're thinking about a permanent location here. If you'd like to follow along and give your feedback and suggestions, follow us on Instagram or follow our Facebook page, right? Cross-pollinate that audience that you're tapping into, because I think the most valuable thing you're going to gain from the pop-up location isn't necessarily the revenue that you're generating, but instead it's going to be the email list and the followers from that part of town if you're thinking about opening a location. Because, something that you guys didn't really experience because you bought an existing business is kind of the pre-opening launch runway. And one of the biggest things I think that contributes to a place's success is the amount of bookings they're able to generate pre-opening. and the amount of trust and the reputation that they're able to garner before their opening day even gets there. So if you are able to gain a list of customers, gain a list of families that you can communicate with, that you can ask for feedback to, that you can involve in your process, the better I think that location will ultimately end up doing. Again, it might require a little finagling and a conversation, but as long as you can proposition it in a legal win-win way, I think they would be crazy not to allow you to utilize that member list or customer list or something like that.
That's a great
Yeah.
idea.
And we're doing a profit share agreement with them.
Okay.
So we have a base rent, and then anything we make over, like anything that we call a profit, we give them a portion of. So theoretically, they would seriously benefit from increased traffic.
I was just going to say, even better. That's going to be just another, I would put that big bold at the top of your email. And honestly, this is one of those things that I would talk about in person if possible, even though they don't, have a huge marketing strategy. If they have a marketing person or if they have somebody that's in charge, talk to them in person, because sometimes it's easy to like read an email and disregard it or forward it and get a no from your boss. I used to work in the corporate world, and I know that if I really wanted something and I knew it was a little out of the box, I had to get up, away from my desk and walk and have a conversation with that person. And that was the most effective way to get what I wanted. And I think this is going to be very similar, especially because, it's one of those things, customer privacy is obviously a big priority. So I think if you can just explain the mutual benefit, and it's really, I said it's a win-win, but it's really a win-win-win, because it's a win for the customers as well, because they might not even know that you're there. And they might not even know that this service is available to them. So I think if you can, let them know, hey, we'd really like to utilize your customer base to let them know we're here. And I think they'd really like it. And I think they'd, like I said, spend all that money every time they come into the park with you guys as well as us. I think it would be a no-brainer for them to do that.
Cool. Awesome.
And then hopefully you'll be able to use that in the future as well.
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And if they say no, there are other ways to kind of leverage their following, even if they're not very active. So for example, I'm working with a real estate firm right now, and they have one agent who has a really large social media following, and they're kind of leveraging that. And how they're doing that is when she posts a reel, for example, or when she posts something on Facebook, she tags the business, and then we do a partnership post. So it's very similar to a sponsored post, but instead of sponsored post, it will say paid partnership. And basically both businesses have to agree to it. So I can't just like go on Facebook and run a paid partnership with like Toys R Us or something. It has to be both pages agreeing to it. But if they say no, like we're not really comfortable with that, it's not in our terms of service to share customer data, say, hey, would you be open to a paid partnership post on Instagram or on Facebook? Because that's a way to target both pages' followers without you actually accessing that granular customer data. So again, even if they're not super active, even if they don't leverage their page followers, that's still, like you said, a bigger following than you. And what I love about this is, that the followers are highly targeted. That they're already interested in the exact location where you already are. And because it is so highly targeted, because it's, 6,000, 7,000 people, it's going to be much less expensive than like blanket targeting the entire area.
That makes sense.
And in general, if somebody sees an ad from a page that they're already following, so in this case, the water park, they're going to be much more likely to engage with it, as opposed to if they see an ad from your page, they might just scroll past because they've never seen your business before. But if they see, oh, this water park posted and I haven't seen them post in a while, like, let me check out what they're doing. They might, like I said, have that familiarity factor and already have that know, like, and trust. So they actually read the post. So you might actually get more success with that initiative than by running ads on your own anyways.
Yeah.
That's a good kind of fallback, but I would offer that as a second alternative. I wouldn't make that my first proposal.
Okay.
So do you do both if that happens? Like, would you run the email campaign and then also do a paid ad, like
You
month
could,
one, month
but I
two?
just always think that email marketing is going to be much more effective especially if you're able to gain access to that list. Because if you were to run like a paid partnership post, you know, all of the followers that you reach, because they're interacting with the post technically on their page, you're going to lose access to them. You're not going to be able to re-engage them when it comes time
Gotcha.
for you to open. So
Yeah.
in the short term, the benefits are going to be very similar, but in the long term, the email is going to be a much greater asset. However, if you want to do both, absolutely do both. It's just, you know, one is free and one costs money. So
Gotcha.
Absolutely. Would you suggest any kind of like outside of digital marketing? Like, so we have a feather flag and we're putting up a big banner out front right now, but like, and we're trying to decide if it's worthwhile to like drop flyers or go into preschools or other like face to face, or just rely on digital marketing and word of mouth.
personally, I would try this first, because again, it's free and I think it's going to have a much bigger impact, and you're going to be able to measure the results, and it's going to be that long-term benefit. Anything
Yeah.
like print marketing, that's going to be expensive. It's going to take time. So can you do everything simultaneously? Of course. But I know you guys are doing a bunch of different things right now. You have more than enough things to spend money on. So,
Yeah.
you know, I think you can probably skip the flyers, especially because this location is going to be gone at the end of the summer. I think email is going to give you a much bigger impact and, like I said, not cost anything.
Okay.
But if they say no, or if they're only open to doing the paid partnership ad, then sure, definitely go drop flyers, especially if there's anything that has a really tight correlation between customer bases. So for example, like we have a water park near us, and there's like an ice cream shop across the street that everyone goes to before or after the water park. So if there's any businesses like that who you know there's a huge overlap, and you can
Okay.
justify the cost, and not just the cost, but also the time and energy it takes to engage with that business owner, to, you know, make sure they understand what you're doing, to make sure they hand out the flyers, to check on it and refill them and things like that. You want to make sure that, again, you're having that huge overlap of customers. Another thing might be summer camps in the area, because again, it is something short term.
Right.
So if there are any summer camps in the area, I think I would target those first. At daycares and preschools and things like that are great, but I know that, you know, my son used to go to daycare, and they used to hand me flyers every day, and they would immediately go in the trash because, you know, I'm
Yeah.
just not in the mindset when I'm picking my kid up from daycare to like look through a million pieces of paper when I already have to look through his day log, when I already have to, you know, manage
Mm.
all of the things, like we're going right into dinner time and bath time and bedtime. I more so get annoyed when I get flyers at that time. But if I'm in an ice cream shop and I'm like, oh, there's a water park right there, and hey, did you know that there's this cool thing? I'm much more receptive to advertisement.
Mm.
So I've heard people have great success stories about handing flyers to preschools and doctors' offices and things like that. I've personally never seen a great impact. And the one caveat being if you do a really great deal. So if you
Mm.
give, you know, a free pass, or if you give a free bring a friend pass, or something that really incentivizes them, that is really valuable to come in, that would be the one exception that I would say. But if it's just like an informational flyer that you're wanting to do, I would probably skip it. And because, you know, one of the things I love about email marketing is the results are very quick, right? Especially if you send out, you know, a short series of emails, you're going to get new followers, you're going to get engagements, you're going to get visitors right away, and you're going to be able to tell pretty quickly, was this successful and was this successful enough? Whereas things
Yeah.
like print advertisements and flyers and things like that, it takes time to figure out if it's actually moving the needle. So what you can do is kind of a stacked effort. So you can do the email promotion and the paid partnership post potentially. And then if that just didn't hit quite the way you expected, then you can kind of start doing the other options. But I
Okay.
just am a very simple, streamlined, less expensive is better girl. So
Yeah.
I love skipping print advertising and, you know, saving the trees as much as possible, just because I don't feel like it's very effective, and I don't think it's a great use of your resources and energy.
Yeah.
How many emails
Okay.
do you send out?
Emails?
Like if yeah, like say like we got the list, we can send an email. We got 2 months left. Is there like a progression of how many you send out, or is there like a rule of thumb for something like that?
That's a great question. It really depends on if they give you any guidance. Like, for example, they might come back and say, we'll send one email or we'll send two emails. Because they don't have like a very structured marketing strategy, it sounds like they're probably going to be a lot more flexible. So if they kind of give you the reins and they don't give you any limit, I would probably send two right away. What email service provider do you use?
So we have MailChimp.
Okay.
My next question on my list is effective email marketing because we have the subscription and we have not utilized it. And one of our like top business goals for the new year is to really make email marketing effective.
Okay, so one of the things I'm pretty sure I haven't used MailChimp in several years, but I know they had this when I was using it. I use Active Campaign now. But one of my
Yeah.
favorite features that most email service providers have is when you send an email, you can do pretty much like a 1 to 2 click resend. So what I do every time I send out an email, something that I just have gotten in the habit of, and I mark it in my Asanas because I always forget if it's not in Asana, it does not get done. So what I do is every single time I send an email, the next day I will do two resends. So I will hit resend to new subscribers and then also resend to anyone who hasn't opened it. And one thing that I like about that I like about Active Campaign over some other email service providers is when you resend the email to anyone who didn't open, it lets you change the subject line. So people don't see the same subject line twice because maybe it wasn't as intriguing as you thought it was. A lot of people do A/B testing and things like that, which is, obviously a more complicated, more advanced strategy. And MailChimp doesn't offer it unless you're in the more advanced tier. So I just kind of avoid it because I don't think it's 100% necessary to do in our line of work.
Yeah.
But for this, again, the next day, I'll do a resend to new subscribers and then a resend to anyone who didn't open. And I think that's good to start with because, what if everyone comes, right? That's, obviously a risk that you're taking. And as a brick and mortar business, there is real scarcity. So I wouldn't go crazy. I wouldn't send, a million emails right away. I would send the one, see what the open rate is, see what the click-through rate is, see what the show up rate is. And then I would probably wait at least a week because these people aren't used to getting emailed by you. So I would be a little bit cautious of that. You don't want to be reported as spam or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I would do the two quick emails, give it a little time, measure the results. If it got a really, really low open rate, their email list might not be very accurate. There might be a lot of old email addresses on there. So then you might want to, think about doing the sponsored post or something like that. But
Yeah.
after a week, I would send a very similar email. I think as long as you keep it to one a week, it's very reasonable. And then as you get later in the summer, you can probably taper that off. Or maybe you can change the messaging to, hey, we're looking for feedback on our brick and mortar location. If you're interested, we're hosting a focus group or we're starting a Facebook group or fill out this Google form. So, the call to action doesn't always have to be come visit us, come visit us, come visit us. It could be, the first one could be, hey, FYI, we're here. Here's our information. Here's where you can learn more about us. But you can also say, hey, here's, a blog that we wrote about our story and why we decided to open this business. And here's what we're really passionate about. And, you can go through all of that information because that storytelling is what really makes people connect with you. And I think
Yeah.
it's so much more important in the post-pandemic world to show people that you are a person behind the screen because now more than ever, people really want to buy from people. I feel like I've said that like 5 times today. I've been on a couple of these calls, but it's so true. So the more that you can really find those points of connection with people, talk about your goals and dreams and your vision for this business. I've seen it firsthand in the group, what you want to do with this business. And I want your customers to know about that as well, especially the people who haven't had the opportunity to visit your in-person space. So again,
Yeah.
it's kind of you're going to be operating within whatever boundaries they give you. But I think if they give you no boundaries, which it sounds, maybe possible, once a week is good, but change it up, change up the messaging, change up what you're asking them to do. One email could simply be, hey, follow us on Instagram. This week we're posting all behind the scenes stories from our brick and mortar location. if, you know, you're interested, or if you want to see what having a play space on your side of town might be like, right? It doesn't always have to be come visit, come play, come give us money, right? It can just be starting a conversation, or, you know, I'm sure you guys get my emails, but I send a bunch of emails that are just like, hey, you know, I'm putting together my content schedule for the next couple months. Can you just reply and let me know, like, what's one question you have that you wish I would answer, or what's one thing you're struggling with right now? So for you, that might be, hey, you know, we're thinking about opening a brick and mortar play space on this side of town. What's one thing that you wish your child had at their last birthday party that they didn't have? Or, you know, what's one thing that makes you light up when you see it at a child's birthday party, right? Maybe it's food options other than pizza. Maybe it's favors. Maybe it's an activity. Maybe it's a character. So, you know, a lot of people assume that anytime you send an email, it has to either be selling something or it has to be giving them some piece of value. But a lot of people forget that there are so many different ways to engage with people effectively via email. And it's funny, you know, and I have an automated email sequence, which I'm going to talk about next, because I think that's the number one thing I would tell you guys to do. But anytime somebody subscribes to my email list, they go through, and I mean, this isn't something that I started with. It took me years to build, but now I have an 80 email welcome sequence that takes them all the way through almost a year. So every single time someone signs up for my email list, they get a year's worth of emails that I've really carefully curated. And like I said, some of those emails are just, hey, what's a question that you have? Or, hey, you know, what's your favorite podcast and what do you love about it? And people reply. I get a huge amount of replies from those emails because I'm, you know, opening that two-way communication. And the funny thing is that the people who ask questions or the people who make suggestions, they almost always end up becoming customers, because they see that I reply. They're like, oh, you're a real person, or oh, you really care, or oh, you really sent this email to me, right? It's not a bot, because people assume that, oh, because this email was automated, you're not going to get a response. And then when I reply, people are like, oh, this is amazing. So I just got off of a call with another owner, and I can't recommend this book enough. It's Unreasonable Hospitality. I'm going to butcher. Have you read it?
We actually had a friend of ours who owns a coffee shop, and he's told us all about it. He's like,
Oh
this
my
is
gosh.
like
Okay,
our
so
motto.
I'm going to spare you the details, but this is something that you would find in that book. It basically talks about how small businesses can really lean into their size, and the fact that, you know, you're not sending emails to 500,000 people. So it's okay to ask for replies, because you do have the capacity to reply to all of them. And is that always going to be possible, you know, as your business grows and scales? Probably not. But while you're just getting started, and while you're really working on nurturing a customer base that it sounds like has been pretty neglected by the previous owners, you know, I think it's a great idea to really, again, let people in and remind them that you care about them, and you care about their feedback, and you care about what they think of your space and all that good stuff.
Awesome. So
And
then,
then I was just going to say, you said that your number one goal is creating a more intentional email strategy. That was I think it's podcast episode number 2. My first podcast episode ever for Profitable Play was how to get people onto your email list. And then the second episode is about why you need an automated welcome sequence. And I recommend those 2 episodes more than any other episode. And there's a reason for that. It makes a huge difference. And in that episode, I can link it for you guys. And for anyone watching, listening, I'll link it in the show notes or the video description. But there's a great structure that I give in that episode when somebody opts into your email list, to kind of walk them through your services, your offerings, your brand story, your business. That really warms them up and converts them into a customer. And what's great about like MailChimp and ActiveCampaign and things like that, especially if you said you're on the paid subscription, because you can only do automated welcome sequences with the paid version of MailChimp, unfortunately. What's great about it is you can set up conditional formatting. So for example, when somebody purchases my course, they get taken out of that automated email sequence and they get put into another one. So you can really highly segment it. So if somebody joins your email list and books a party right away, you don't have to email them 3 times about your birthday parties, right? You can be very intentional and very it's almost like a one-to-one marketing strategy because it is so highly segmented. But, the biggest mistake that I see people make with their email marketing is not emailing their list enough and not emailing them in a way that introduces them to your business. So when, let's say somebody, especially when you're just starting out in a new location, when somebody signs up for your email list, they don't know a lot about you, right? They don't know a lot about your business. So if they just start automatically receiving like a newsletter, they're going to be completely out of the loop. They're not going to know what you're about. They're not going to know what you're known for. They're not going to know, what your space looks like or anything like that. So they're just, you're kind of throwing them in to the fire without giving them any warm up. So I love an automated welcome sequence because, and in that episode, I talk about sending those emails in kind of a quick succession. So there's one automated email immediately when they sign up for your email list. Then I send one the next day. Then I send the next one a couple days later. But it's kind of like it's fast tracking your customers into getting to know exactly who you are so that when they do see your newsletter, so when they do see you pop up on Instagram or Facebook, they know about you and they're more educated to make a buying decision. Because again, if they just start getting your regular email blasts, they're not going to be very likely to engage with them or to actually buy from them unless they have that foundational piece, right?
Yeah.
So that
That
I would
makes
make
sense.
that my number one priority if I was you guys.
Okay.
And then number
Sounds
priority would
good.
be like the automated list and then the personal aspect of it.
Yeah. So it's all
Gotcha.
hands off for you guys. And again, it's something that you can start really small. You can have a series of 3 emails. So the first email can be, hey, this is a little bit about our business. We're the owners, and here's a little bit about our story. And then the next email can be, here's a little bit about what our space looks like. Here's some pictures. Here are all the different services we offer. And then the next one can be, here's about our birthday parties or whatever the case may be, right? It can be very simple 3 email sequence, and then you can build on it. So for me, every time I release a new piece of content that I'm really proud of, or every time I publish like a blog that people open a lot or that gets a lot of traffic, I'm like, oh, people like this. So I add it onto my automated email sequence. Because if you think about it, I publish, content like crazy, but once I email it out, my new subscribers might never see that. And I know you guys are posting on social media a lot. So if there's a reel or if there's a video or if there's a post or something that people are loving that gets a lot of engagement, that's something that I would direct new customers to as well. I don't know if you guys blog or anything, but some of my biggest traffic numbers come from my automated email sequence. And that means some blogs and some videos that I've put out in like 2019 still get tons of traffic. And it's so nice to have that automated sequence because I know that somebody is going to, it's basically like a concierge for your business, right? That welcome sequence is just easing people into it, which I absolutely love. So anytime you have a post or a blog or a video, like if you do a live tour of your space someday or something like that, that would be something great that you can just tack on, and then you can add the fancier stuff later. So when somebody books a birthday party, you can say, okay, remove them from this sequence and put them in this, party planning sequence or something like that. You can add all that, fancy stuff later. It's most important to get it set up. And that's something that, I have to be honest, I only look at my automated welcome sequence like once a year now. I refresh it, I look at the stats, but at the beginning, I think it's important to make sure that the open rates are strong, the click-through rates are strong, because I noticed when I was first getting started that there were definitely some outliers, some emails that people just weren't opening or people just weren't clicking on or just weren't resonating with people. So then I took them out or I switched the subject line. But once you get it fine-tuned, it can be such a magical thing for your business. And it can also be a great way to segment your customers. So I don't do this now, but back when I owned my physical location, I oftentimes would just ask people how old their kids were or ask people what they were most interested in. And just by clicking a simple link, MailChimp can tag them and say, oh, this person has a toddler, or oh, this person has an infant, or oh, this person has an older child. And you can kind of allow them to choose their own adventure so that you can then tailor your marketing and tailor your email marketing to make sure that they're only getting notified about things that they're interested in. that's the easy way to do it. Of course, if you have waivers and things like that, you can do like kids' birthdays and stuff like that. But this is just, such an easy thing to do. Something else that I've seen people do is say, hey, I plan to come more during the week, or hey, I plan to come more on the weekend. And that way you can also kind of help them segment themselves, because you know that somebody that only comes on the weekends is probably not going to be interested in like memberships or drink
Yeah.
specials or things like that, but they would be interested in like weekend events or classes or birthday parties or things like that. So, you know your customers better than anyone. If you have two groups or three groups that your customers naturally fall into, this would be a great time to segment them. So for example, if you have one email list and you have two locations, having people kind of choose location they prefer to get most of their information from, that's also a good way to segment people. And back when I did segment people for this business, I would say, hey, are you currently open, or are you still a prospective owner? And again, that just put people into two separate buckets, and
Mhm.
it made them much more likely to respond to any of my next subsequent emails. But again, that's something fancy you can add later. I think the most important thing is to set up that automated welcome sequence. I think I even provided like a sample that you can copy and paste and tweak in the Playmaker Society templates for you guys.
Yeah.
I feel so passionately about this. It really is a huge difference maker. Just knowing that every time someone joins your list, they have their little own personal concierge to get to know your business better.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense about like segmenting, because I would say we have a great dedicated group of moms that comes in. They all have memberships. They come in twice a week. They're so cute. They've made like their own little society, which I love. But then they're super different than the weekend crowd that comes in. And they have just wildly different needs. They're like a lot more searching for community, and they're searching for things to do with their toddlers before nap time. Whereas the weekend crew typically has like older kids, they want family time, they're just looking for different things.
Yeah,
So that's
absolutely. And once you, I know that you guys just recently purchased a business and you haven't opened that second location yet. Something that you can do as well, that I used to do all the time, is when people start interacting with your email. So let's say you send out an email about a weekend event or something like that. You can send a subsequent email to everybody who clicked on that email or to everybody who opened that email. So there are multiple ways to segment your list. I don't
huh.
like to ever say this, because I don't think that there's ever too many emails. More emails always equals more sales, and that's just always true. I know a lot of people feel icky about sending too many emails, or they feel like they're being overwhelming.
Yeah.
I personally just never think that's the case. However,
Okay.
I know that a lot of people have that mindset. So this is the perfect way to kind of get around that, is to, again, figure out what your list is currently interacting with. And again, if people opened a previous email or clicked a previous email about an event, that's probably a good indicator that they would interact with a similar email in the future. Something else that you can do as well is you have customer lists, right? So you can upload your birthday party list and say, hey, we're doing a new promotion where if you book a sibling's birthday, you can send it to people who have booked previous birthday parties at your facility. Hey, we're doing
Yeah.
a promotion where anybody who's booked a party in the past, they're going to get $50 off a rebooking, as long as the date takes place within the next year or something. So they can book a sibling's birthday, or they can book that child's next birthday. So that's a way to, again, make sure that you're emailing exactly who you want to email. Something that we liked to do, like, for example, I know you guys haven't been open like the full summer yet, but every year we would first send our summer camp information to our previous summer camp families. That was just a practice that we always did, because it helped us like figure out our system, because every year, we had different pricing, we had different themes. So sending it to that highly targeted group of customers also helped us, because if there was any blips in the booking system, or if there was any questions, or if something didn't make sense, or if there was, some issue, it helped us kind of like taper that and make sure that we were able to quash any of those issues before sending that promotion to the general public.
Oh,
So
smart.
there are so many benefits to email segmentation. And my favorite thing to do is upload my customer lists back into my email service provider, tag them with event customer or tag them with, summer camp customer or member or something like that, so that you can then utilize those tags in the future so that you don't feel like you're sending too many emails. Because even if you're sending 10 emails a week, each person might only be getting one email. And again, so much of that can be automated. So it feels like a lot, but it's not going to be a lot for you. It's just going to look like from a customer perspective that you are very active and that you are very, engaged with your customers, because they're going to be getting emails from you, but you're not going to be actually sitting down doing like a unique email blast every single time.
Right. It'll all be pre-done and ready to go, systemized.
Yes.
Cool. Great. Cool. I think the only other question that I had was just and I'm sure a lot of it goes into email and things like that. Getting more like social proofs, and using that as marketing, like Google reviews or people tagging on Facebook. We do a lot right now, like if people say like, oh my gosh, we had so much fun and this is our first time in and we'll definitely be back, I would say, oh my gosh, it would mean the world to us if you left a Google review or things like that. And unfortunately, for the amount of positive feedback we get in the building, our Google reviews don't necessarily reflect that. And I'd love to get more, I guess, yeah, social proofs, people like speaking positively on social media and search engine reviews and things like that.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you're probably, fighting an uphill battle because a lot of those reviews were probably inherited. So I feel for you there. For me, first of all, I would say the biggest, and I have an entire podcast episode about this, so I'll link to it if you want to hear more, because I know I'm going to forget something. But
Yeah.
the biggest thing for me is providing an incentive. Now, there are rules around this. Like, for example, if you're providing an incentive, you can't require something be a 5-star review, for example. Like, Google is really specific about how you ask for reviews. Generally, they'll flag reviews if you get a ton at once, or by a ton, I mean like dozens and dozens, or if people from outside your geographic area all of a sudden start reviewing. So like, for example, if you're marked as a local business and all of a sudden you get 50 reviews from all over the country, they're going to mark that as suspicious and they'll probably take them down. Google is very serious about their reviews. So I would just do a quick read over of their terms of service, but I love providing an incentive within their terms. So there are really two ways that I found most successful to do this. The first is a little bit more passive, but I just say, hey, we used to have a little sign at our front, and we would also post randomly, like sporadically on social media, hey, show us your review of our place. We were very specific to not say 5-star review. Show us your Google review and you can have a free cup of coffee, or you can bring a friend for free, or you can have a mystery grab bag for free. There was like a couple weeks where our espresso machine was broken one year, and we didn't know what to use as an incentive anymore to like get people to review us and to get people to, we used to use free coffee passes for everything. And so I literally took a ton of leftover party favors and I made like mystery bags. And I would say, hey, your child can pick a free mystery gift bag from the bin if you show us a Google review. So you can get really creative about the incentives. It doesn't always have to be something crazy. People do a lot for very little, I've found. So number one is provide an incentive as long as it's within their terms. So for us, we had them show us a review for a free coffee most of the time, because, even though we didn't specify it had to be a 5-star review, nobody came to the counter and showed us a 1-star review and was like, give me something for free. If they're expecting something in return, they're probably going to leave a positive review. So we actually did get quite a few reviews that way. And yes, some people try to like show us the same review twice, and there are ways to, to abuse this. However, honestly, the positive impact of the reviews was bigger than the downside of people potentially abusing it. But the second way that I found was very, very effective, but again, you just have to make sure that you're not getting too many reviews at the time, is when we would do events or when we would do classes, we would say, hey, if you guys really liked this event, Or you can even make it a little bit, I don't want to say sneakier, but you can make it a little bit less obvious. And you can say, hey, we're going to do a raffle. We're going to give away, a free 10-pack of play passes, or we're going to give away, a gift basket or something like that. Come over to enter. And when they come over to enter, just say, hey, it's really simple. You don't have to pay anything to enter. All you have to do is show us a Google review, or all you have to do is show us a Facebook review, and we'll enter your name. And then the most important thing is that they do it right then and there. Because I found that if you let people walk out that door, you're not getting that review, unfortunately. Like if you send an email after an event asking for reviews, or if you send an email asking for a review after a party, you might get a couple, but it's not going to move the needle. So again,
Yeah.
the key is to get the reviews then and there. And of course, if somebody already has submitted a review, but they're a loyal customer, right? They're obviously coming to multiple events, just enter them anyways, as a show of good faith. But just say, hey, that's all it takes to enter. Show us the review on your phone. It has to be submitted. It doesn't have to be live, because I think it takes like 12 hours or something, but show us that you submitted it. And then you can, again, because you're asking them for that input right then and there, you give them that benefit then and there. So at the end of the event, or at the end of whatever you're doing, you can announce the winner, so that they really felt like, hey, this wasn't just, when you go on those websites and it's like, enter for a year of free Diet Coke or something. And
Oh,
that
yeah.
there's like, you've never known anyone who actually won the year of free Coke or something. If they, see someone actually win, they're like, okay, I get it. Like, that was worth it. Like, I actually had a chance. Um, Again, so I think the most important thing is ask for the review then and there, ask for proof, and then give them that direct benefit, as a show of appreciation, and not make them wait, days or weeks. I love doing it in person, because again, it can get so dicey, especially
Yeah.
with Instagram and Meta, about asking people to tag you and asking people to share things. They are more, especially because it's an election year, they are more specific and they are more strict than ever. So I love
Mm.
doing this in person, because, there's less chance of anything going awry, because even if you're
Yeah.
doing something with pure intentions, unfortunately, there are so many good businesses that I've seen getting their accounts completely taken away because of just very minor mistakes. So I love
Oh,
doing this stuff in person, because again, if for whatever reason Google has an issue with it, you can say, hey, all of these people were actually physically in my space. Yes, there was a surge, but all of those people were actually there. Whereas, if it was an online contest, it opens you up a little bit more. But so yeah, those are my two favorite ways to ask for reviews. And then again, anytime that you can ask for that review in person, and make it as easy as possible as well. So we used to have, it's funny, QR codes were hot and then they went out of style, but now they're like hot again, apparently.
they're coming back. Yeah.
Yeah, so put some QR codes around your space, and again, give an incentive. So for us, we had the QR code that said, hey, we're going to make it as easy as possible for you. If you scan this QR code, it's going to open up right to our review screen. Just show a barista and you get a free coffee. It's like instant gratification. It's not, I don't like when businesses do leave a review and enter to win a drawing every month or every couple months. Like, to me, that's not enough of an incentive for me to leave a review. I either need that raffle to be done then and there, or I need that instant free thing. So those are my suggestions about getting more reviews. But again, I can send you the link to that podcast. It was a couple years ago, but it's it's also one of my favorites.
That'd be great. When you get more Google reviews, does it, like, if you start running Google ads, like for booking a party and like parties in our area, like, does that help your
Absolutely.
ad, whatever, I
Absolutely.
don't
It is
know,
a huge
conversion?
factor. When you hire somebody to do search engine optimization for your business, one of the first things that they'll recommend you do is to increase your Google reviews. It's right up there as one of the most important elements that Google considers when they're ranking content, especially for small local businesses, and especially if you have competitors in the area. Because if two people are competing for birthday party venue in, X town, if there's nothing else that's different, they are absolutely going to rank the one that's reviewed better and
Mm.
has a bigger volume of reviews than a competitor. I have seen, it's funny, it's not just the star rating, it's also volume makes a big impact as well. So somebody with a 4.8 star rating with 1,000 reviews might rank higher than somebody with 2 reviews that are 5-star. So you have to kind of balance them both.
Yeah.
But that's kind of good news because that means, you know, one-star review or a couple 1-star reviews aren't necessarily a bad thing. You just have to get more 5-star reviews to kind of balance them out. But volume is good. And we've, you know, tested that time and time again. And yes, reviews are very important when it comes to search engine optimization.
That's helpful.
And Google reviews are much more impactful because of that than Facebook reviews. Facebook reviews are not very important anymore. The algorithm is not really prioritizing businesses that are reviewed a lot. They're not even really doing star ratings anymore. They're just doing like recommended by, like there's some reviews, but they're really not putting an importance on them. So when you're asking for reviews, I always recommend asking for Google reviews and prioritizing those as opposed to Facebook or other reviews.
Okay, that's good to know.
And then if you ever have like a dream client, or if you have those moms that are like in your space all the time and they absolutely love your space and they shout your space from the rooftops, which I think you mentioned now, ask them like, hey, you know, I'll give you, you know, your next session for free, or I'll, you know, give you something for free. Can you sit down with me? And I would love to interview you and just ask you some questions, because video testimonials are extremely impactful as well. Especially when people are considering higher ticket things like memberships or birthday parties. They want to hear from people who have been there. And even if they don't watch the testimonials, just having video testimonials on your party page is a really good trust. It's a really great way to build trust with your potential customers. And what I love about video testimonials is you can slice and dice them in a million different ways and get so much leverage from them. So like, for example, I have like 20 video testimonials for Play Cafe Academy. I've used them on their own. I've made compilations. I've taken little snippets out. I've converted them into text testimonials. I've woven them into other content. I've taken those video testimonials and put them into my email sequences. I put quotes in the email sequences. Like from one video testimonial, you can spin that out into like 20 different pieces of content. And you can, something that I absolutely love doing is anybody that visits, well, for me, it's my course sales page, but for you, it would be like your birthday party booking page. For anybody that visits your birthday party booking page but doesn't book, I loved retargeting people with a video testimonial from a party parent, because it's a way for you to stay top of mind. Retargeting ads, because they're only targeting people who have visited a specific web page, they can be run very effectively for like $1 a day because it's such a small amount of people. And it's just an amazing way to stay top of mind for people that are considering you as a birthday venue. And also, again, inching them closer and closer to that buying decision because they're going to hear from an actual real life customer. So again, if you can just organize an afternoon for them, maybe offer them like a private play date in exchange for, you know, sitting down with you for even 2 to 3 minutes and doing a video testimonial. For video testimonials, I've used just my iPhone in like cinematic mode on a tripod. It doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to hire like a videographer. I will say that it's really difficult to ask people to do their own testimonials. If you ask them to like film it in their house, I've had horrible luck asking people, even if I give them like very specific instructions, like sit behind a window, like, hold your phone this way. Like it's always all over the place. The sound quality is always terrible. So the more you can control it, the better quality and the more consistency there's going to be. But I think because you said you have that core group of customers that absolutely loves you, I think I would really tap into that. Another book that I can't recommend enough is Superfans by Pat Flynn. And he kind of talks about taking a core group of customers that are really passionate about your business and leveraging that and snowballing it into, you know, an entire community of super fans. But the whole principle of the book is pouring all of your time and energy into just a couple people and the massive impact that that can make. And I think you have a ready-made group of people that are ready and willing to do that.
Awesome. That's great. Because they are, I think there's a couple of them at least, I think that would be willing to do video testimonials.
Yeah,
and
even
things
2 or
like
3,
that.
I think is going to make a really big difference. And especially if you're going to be opening in a new area where people don't, necessarily know you or trust your brand, having those video testimonials, I think is going to be crucial. And again, you can sprinkle them all over your website. You can put them in emails. You can upload the videos to social media and pin them on your page. There are so many different ways that you can use them. They're huge assets to your business. For the Playmaker event in July, I'm hiring a videographer to do some testimonials. And I am willing to invest like thousands of dollars in it because I know how much of an impact that it's made for my business. Any person who sells a service or anything more than like $200-300, I think video testimonials are highly, highly underutilized.
That's great.
All right, that wraps up my conversation with Kaylinn and Jeremy from Monkey Around in Montana. Again, I've linked all of their social media and their website in the video description. And if you have any questions or any topics that you'd like to see me cover in a YouTube video on this channel, please leave me a comment. I love taking your suggestions because I want to put videos out there that you actually want to watch and that actually move your business forward. I've linked all my additional resources, my podcast, my courses, all that good stuff in the video description as well. So I'd also love to connect with you there. All right, bye for now.